IAS 16 then, property, plant and equipment. How do we measure it initially at cost? So the question that we are given here is, a manufacturing company plans to recognise newly acquired equipment as a non-current asset in accordance with IAS 16 PPE, and you're asked to select the one cost that should not be included in the initial assessment of the asset. So we have 5 options on screen as they are appearing now. You may want to pause the video here and have a go and try to identify which one is relevant. If not, I'm going to talk through each one now in turn. So the first option we are given then is that transportation costs required to bring the equipment to the company's premises. Well, in order to get the asset to us and in order to get it in working order, we would physically need to have that asset present. Therefore, we are going to need those transportation costs for that to happen, and therefore we can include these in the initial measurement of the asset, because without the transportation costs, there wouldn't be an asset for us to use. Installation costs necessary to set up the equipment for use. Once again, if we are installing a new asset and there is some installation that needs to be done, whereby we would not be able to use the asset without, we can capitalise on these and we can include them in the initial measurement of the asset. Customs duties related to the importation of equipment. Once again, if we are importing from another country and we are having to pay a fee on this, we would expect these to be included in the initial measurement here. Otherwise, once again, we would not have that non-current asset for our use. A portion of general overhead costs reflect the management's time spent negotiating the purchase price. Well, we can't include this in the initial measurement of the asset. If we think of relevant costing here, this is going to be a sunk cost. By the point in which we are receiving the asset, and once we've done the deal, we know that we have to pay for it, we have accumulated it, we would have already paid our management's time for the negotiations that he did. And those costs would have had to be paid regardless of whether or not we purchased that non-current asset, and therefore that is not relevant here. Therefore, legal fees incurred for any advice on the acquisition of the equipment is going to be relevant. And this is because that is ultimately about the non-current asset itself. We would not have had to carry out that legal work if we weren't going to purchase it. So therefore, the correct answer here, which we cannot include in our initial assessment or initial measurement for calculating a non-current asset initial measurement, would be the portion of general overhead costs which reflect our management's time spent negotiating the purchase price, because ultimately our management's time would have had to be paid regardless of whether or not this was to occur.